Hi, welcome to Calm Down with James Eade. I'm James Eade, and I try to calm down. And why? Because I think when I make decisions based on anger, agitation, or anxiety, they're invariably poor decisions. When I make decisions based on when I'm calm, peaceful, serene, those decisions are usually better. They're almost always better. And I don't think I'm alone. I think the United States of America is uptight as a country and needs to learn to calm down. We get given timeouts in kindergarten, stuff like that. And we were taught early on ways to calm ourselves down. But we've forgotten as adults. We don't practice the tools and techniques that we have been taught to calm ourselves. Now, Calm Down with James Heed is mostly, I would say, something that it's just to help people calm down. But I do have an ulterior motive. It's not necessarily a bad one, but it's one that I believe in because I wrote this book. It's called Freedom, Your Path to Recovery. It's not my path, it's your path. Everyone needs to find their path, walk their path, and hold your head high while you're doing it. Look people in the eye. When I was in the throes of addiction, I couldn't do it. I can do it now because I'm in recovery. Now I've found a freedom and a return of the power of choice. Power of choice is a gift that was freely given to me, and I did not utilize it. And I lost the power of choice, but it's been restored to me. And I can choose how to behave now rather than just be compelled to behave in certain ways that weren't always the best, the prettiest, the nicest, the kindest. But I can do a better job now of being loving and kind. And if I can, why wouldn't I? So these tools and techniques are part of the show, Calm Down with James Eade. And I want to show you one other thing. This is the website I'm going to show you now. There it is. Had trouble finding it. But that's the website you can go to find previous episodes of Calm Down. And please, subscribe. You'll be notified, I think, when new shows arrive. And we try to do a show every week, episode 11 of 12 for season 1. And season 2 is in the mix. We're figuring out how to get that started. And it should be a little break of a week or two. But, then we'll get started with season 2. But calming down is the main thing. And if you want to tell me how you do it, write to me. Write to me at info@airu.tv. And I'll be glad to share the tools and techniques that you have learned. But the main thing, if you're definitely in recovery from addiction, getting anxious, getting agitated, getting angry can lead to resentments, and resentments can take you out. You can suffer a relapse. It's been done so often, but it is avoidable if you learn these tools and techniques to calm down. And calming down is not a selfish thing to do. Self-care, self-love, these are not selfish. You have to learn to take care of yourself. And for me, it's deep breathing. A deep breath can calm me down. The mind can calm the body, telling you, take a deep breath. And the body can calm the mind. 1 or 2 deep breaths. And I feel better. I feel more relaxed, calm. And these are things that I can do, and I do them every morning so that I know that at some point during the day when I do get agitated or angry or anxious, or inevitably I do, these are things that I know. I have confidence. I've already done it once. I can do it again. So this breath is taken with the confidence that I know the feeling of calmness. And I know I make better decisions and behave better when I'm calm. So help us to calm down. We're calming yourself down first, because you can't give what you don't have. And if you're not calm, you can't calm anyone else down. But if you are calm, it's amazing how the vibe is picked up. And other people, instead of escalating arguments as I did in the past, I can de-escalate and calm them down. So thank you for joining us on Calm Down with James Eade. And we have plenty of segments coming up that you're going to be hopefully learning some more techniques, tools and techniques to calm down. Welcome to this segment of Calm Down with James Eade. I'm James Eade, but I don't always have another gripe to share, and I'm going to bring on my senior correspondent, Rick Rosner. Rick, how are you today? Are you grumpy about something?
Well, I just took a nap, and
Okay.
that means I'm a little more. I haven't woken up to be totally grumpy yet.
Okay.
It used to be I'd take a nap after school in high school, and then I'd come downstairs, and my family would be noisily eating soup at dinner, and that would make me crazy. But my parents are gone now. There's nobody to eat soup noisily. So
Okay.
but yeah,
Were
I
you
am.
an only
I
child?
am.
Were you an only child?
No, little
Oh.
brother.
Okay. Did he also slurp?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's 2,500 miles away. So
Yeah. So is mine. Yeah. All right. So as you wake up, and it's a process to get grumpy, just as it is to calm down. So
so
I understand this.
so I'm liberal. I'm probably more liberal than 70% of Americans. So I'm not like totally fringe, but
Mhm.
still 30% of people are more liberal than I am.
Okay.
And as such, and I've had to pay attention to the news since I got hired for a late night comedy show in 2002. And, for years and years, had to pay attention to the news to write topical jokes.
Sure.
And I've paid attention ever since. And in my liberal mind, things have been shitty since 2016, well, Trump announced in 2015, nobody thought he'd win, but have been
Right.
shitty since 2016 when he got elected.
Right.
And, he seems, incredibly, well, he was a terrible, terrible president. According to 5 surveys of presidential historians, they ranked in the 5 surveys, they ranked him all-time worst, second worst, third worst, fourth worst, and all-time worst again. He's never been not shitty in the minds of people whose job it is to know.
Study this. Yeah.
Right. And it seems the same way to me too, even though I'm less knowledgeable than they are. And it seems like he gets worse. But the specific trend that I'm a little bit annoyed with is, so when Biden was forced to admit that he wasn't a good candidate anymore and dropped out, Harris took over, and every week for like 4 or 5 weeks, her lead over Trump increased by 1%.
Mm-hmm.
And I was loving that because she was 3.5 points ahead with 11 weeks to go, 12 weeks to go. And I was hoping that would somewhat continue for, the rest until election day.
Mm-hmm.
But for the past couple weeks, that trend has stalled. And that's what I'm annoyed with. Because Trump has gotten no better as a candidate.
Right.
And that people support him at all, I find annoying because, I lived in New York City for 2.5 years in the late 80s. And people knew he was a dick back then. It didn't matter he was a dick. He was just part of the landscape. He was just an a-hole who'd go on Howard Stern and talk about all the pussy he was getting.
I see.
but it didn't. Nobody cared because you
Yeah.
didn't have anything. I mean,
And
maybe black people cared because he did racist stuff, like take out a full page ad attacking the Central Park Five
yeah.
for attacking the Central Park jogger. And then, saying they should get the death penalty. And it turned out eventually that they had nothing to do with the attack. Even
Right.
after they'd spent like 3, 4, 5 years in prison, they found that I think the real people, and he never apologized. But in terms of the overall world, he wasn't a danger.
Right.
But
Absolutely. Because New York has plenty of people that we would not want to associate with, can be mean-spirited and childish and throw temper tantrums at 3 a.m. in the morning on Twitter. Or, we can ignore them, but, we can't ignore a president.
no,
Not so easily.
and I believe he made a lot of he was very ineffective. And the stuff he was effective at, only really a couple things. He appointed a bunch of like judges whom I think are a-holes and unqualified. And he did the tax cut for the mega rich and corporations. That was about it.
Well, I got one more. He did the tariffs on China, which only hurt the U.S. economy and the U.S. Consumer.
Okay. But I didn't think he did much good. He in 2020,
it wasn't good. No, it was
in 20 he fired the people whose job it was to look out for pandemics in 2018.
Right.
So we weren't ready when COVID came along at the end of 2019, and 2020 was freaking miserable with more jobless Americans than at any other point in U.S. history before or since.
It was awful.
And a ton of dead. And so, so this is part of a larger gripe that I maybe have already hit, that his approval since he announced for president in 2015 has pretty much been a steady 40%.
Right.
Support, 55% of Americans don't like him. And that barely has budged. It only moves a couple percent.
I agree. Everything that you say adds up to my research as well.
So, but I was hoping now, frickin' Harris and Waltz seem like decent people.
Yeah.
They don't seem perfect. Now, Biden. Biden, I thought, has a lot of advantages in being president. He was in the Senate 36 years, VP 8 years. 50, like when he first was elected to the Senate, he was too young to serve. He had to wait to have a birthday before he entered the Senate. And so he's 50 years of political experience, which helped him get stuff done in a highly polarized environment. Not brilliant, just like a smart, experienced guy. We haven't had that many brilliant presidents. Teddy Roosevelt absolutely wrote 50 books.
Yeah, he was amazing. Yes.
And also a freaking crazy ass lunatic charging into battle.
Yeah.
He gets shot in the chest when he's supposed to give a speech, goes ahead, gives the speech anyway while he's bleeding.
They don't make him like that anymore.
The speech was folded up in his pocket. It slowed down the bullet, so the bullet didn't penetrate him very deeply. He still gave an hour speech. Just a total freaking awesome lunatic. Bill Clinton, very smart. Jimmy Carter, very smart.
Absolutely.
It didn't necessarily, Carter, it didn't help him. Carter, nuclear sub-engineer.
Yeah.
But, it didn't help him very. Al Gore, potentially a president, same kind of Ivy League thing, very smart, didn't give him a personality, didn't teach him how to deal with the press. Clinton, smart, Rhodes Scholar, went to Oxford, but not smart enough to keep his dick in his pants.
Yeah, policy won't, but still, he made a mistake.
I mean, he was more lucky I mean, luck, I think, had as much to do with the success of his presidency as smartness. He was smart enough to take the feedback from the country. He saw that the Republicans were trying to fuck him, so he moved to the center. He came out, he came out against welfare. He came out, he wanted to throw a bunch of people in prison, and we question that policy now.
Yes.
So he was smart enough to judge what opinion was.
Mm-hmm.
But he was mostly lucky that we really didn't have to deal with Al Qaeda until the presidency after his.
Right, right.
So you don't need to be smart. You need to be experienced. You need to read signals. So, Biden was pretty good at that. It took him a while
up the aisle. He was able to, in the Senate, all those years in the Senate, he was known for supporting Republican and really pissing off the progressive part of the party, because he would work with Republicans on the other side.
He's really the drill baby drill president. He made a bunch of promises about no drilling on federal land, no fracking, and he turned it around. And the past 3 years, 2022, 23, and this year, we've set all-time records in all of history for all nations. No nation has produced more fossil fuels than the U.S.
Wow.
And you can hate it for climate change, but as a talking point, well, it should take it away from the Republicans.
Right. Right. So instead of a genius, instead of partly Carter.
But the point I'm building to is, I don't think Kamala Harris is a genius. I don't think Waltz is a genius.
Right.
But they seem energetic, younger. I mean, Kamala Harris particularly seems youthful because she's got, she's pretty. She's got really good hair, and she smiles a lot. She laughs a lot.
Yeah.
She does it in a way that doesn't strike most people, as false. Hillary Clinton had trouble laughing convincingly, or at least the Republicans were able to make people pay attention to how she laughed.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're trying to make an issue out of that with Harris as well, but I don't think that they're successful at it.
No, I don't think it's fixed. But what I was hoping for was that Harris's lead would just steadily increase. Maybe not as fast as it initially did, but for the last couple of weeks, she's been at 3.5% in the aggregate polls, which are Hillary Clinton numbers. Maybe not enough to win the general election, and she needs to regularly show a 7-8% lead in these polls. And I could bitch about the polls. I think I've already bitched about the polls, how they're, but even though they're unreliable, we still need to get, good signals from them. And
that's true. I don't know anyone in my circle that responds to polls. So,
I took one just a couple of days ago, just so like a person who I don't consider a lunatic, though I probably am, would be included in the poll. And they pick up. I go, how long is it going to take? And they tell you 10 minutes, and it takes 20. And so this guy said, how long does it take? He goes, 8 minutes. So I go, okay, I'll give you 8. I'm hanging up after 8 minutes. And he got it done in 9. So that was fine.
Wow. Good for you. So, and you don't do it normally, though. That was an exception. Is that correct?
Every once in a while, maybe once a year, I'll say yes, but I usually end up more pissed off because it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And like this poll, it pissed me off a little bit because one of the questions were, which two of these issues are most important to you? And then they run through a list of 10 issues, and it's like, well, how am I supposed to keep all those in my head to pick out the two? That was a dumb question. Also, they didn't have the two issues that most were,
Exactly.
so it's so often you see polls that are badly designed.
Correct. Absolutely. Very, very true. But going back to what you were saying about Trump support is, solid at a certain level.
Right now,
The
he's
low
at 43%, which
Yeah.
is freaking ridiculous because, like, he just keeps saying crazy crap. Where now the Arlington shit hasn't hit the polls, but I don't think it'll move the polls. So, to explain to people who don't know, so Trump, there are 13 people got killed in a terrorist bomb during the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. 13 U.S. troops. Trump shows up at Arlington National Cemetery to honor one of the dead with the family of one of the dead. Um, he also made a campaign ad using footage taken at the grave site, which is against the rules of Arlington.
Right.
Also, some of his staffers got in a physical and verbal scuffle with somebody who works at Arlington who told them they were breaking the rules and they couldn't do this. Then his campaign staff said, well, that person was mentally ill. What we did was fine. And this whole thing, and like libs are just going, well, freaking asshole. And conservatives are yelling, lots of people have made ads at Arlington, and what he did was fine. He was honoring the dead. He wasn't making a campaign ad. And this thing's been going for a week. And, he poses like a jerk at the grave. He's standing among the graves, and he's grinning, and he's giving a thumbs up. And, so will this change the polls? I don't think so. No, it's not. Everybody's already in their corner. And
Right.
independents, are they going to give a crap about a scuffle at Arlington? Probably not. But yeah, I'm kind of generally low key annoyed all the time that he's still at 43% approval and 53% disapproval. I feel like he should be under 40. I mean, and but so
He literally could have shot someone on Fifth Avenue, and his numbers wouldn't have suffered.
he said, that's a saying of his, that my people are with me.
Right.
I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose a single voter. Said something that's pretty close to the quote. And then somebody died in one of his buildings on Fifth Avenue. He killed somebody on Fifth Avenue because he was too cheap to install sprinklers in his condos. Now, sprinklers cost a ton. They're not cheap to install. So, I can understand it, but I can also understand that he was freaking cheap. A fire broke out, and this guy died in one of his apartments / condos. Nobody cared.
Well, the list of things that he has done that has been damaging goes on and on. But I think
like I saw a tweet today, like arguing that he couldn't have committed the crimes. How could a guy not have a single charge filed against him in the first 77 years of his life, and then have all these charges filed against him at age 88? And then, I and a bunch of other libs went back through his history of getting caught doing stuff. He was first investigated by the FBI in 1972 for racist rental practices, and the FBI had applicants to look for apartments in Trump properties, and black people showed up and they were told no availability, and white people showed up and they said, yeah, we have apartments for you. So the DOJ, on the basis of this, in 73, sued Trump and his dad, and they settled in 74. That was 50 years ago. And he's been involved in 4,900 lawsuits. People sue him to get him to pay his legit debts.
Right.
He sues people who want him to pay them, and he's like, yeah, take me to court. And he's been more involved in more lawsuits than the next 4 real estate developers combined.
Right.
He's had a history of shady operating.
Oh yeah. And that's New York was the first place that he was that people just found out. He's been a con artist practicing a long con, and people in New York found out first. And
Yeah,
you would think
because I
by
mean,
now that
he used to love New York City. He used to love the nightlife. He used to love banging second tier models. He used to love going on Stern, like I said.
yeah.
Um,
And the tabloids would feature him on the back page.
yeah. Um, so I mean, so my general gripe, my specific gripe is the polls aren't budging as much as I want them to.
Okay.
My general gripe is they haven't budged for the last 8 years, regardless of what he does.
Right.
Which is not to disregard some of the issues that make Trump's people follow him for bullshit reasons, for the sportification of politics. He's our guy. We're going to support him no matter what shitty stuff he does, and F everybody else because you're on the other side. It's like the Celtics versus the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dumb reason to always support him, but there are legit reasons to support him, which the big euphemism for it is economic uncertainty. That you're in, like prices have gone up by 20% in the last 3.5 years.
Right. Not just here. That's a global inflation.
Right. But here's where you feel it, because here's where you live.
Right.
And jobs have gotten shittier over the past decade. And I would argue that a lot of the shitification of jobs has been due to tech disruption. Well, there's another big cause that's crazy, but women entering the workforce over the past, starting, say, in the 60s. Women entered the workforce in World War II in the 40s.
Sure.
But then the men came back and the women went back home.
Right.
And stayed there until the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. Once women came into the workforce, employers were like, well, we have a bunch more people working. We have to lower wages. So one salary wasn't good enough to support a family. You needed both parents working.
Yes.
That's a huge general trend and part of the fucking of Americans.
A lot of cost there, right?
And then the more recent trend is tech replacing real jobs with these bullshit jobs. Uber driver, a bullshit job. DoorDash. I'd argue OnlyFans is a ridiculous kind of half a job. We have as many people naked on OnlyFans, 1.1 million. Now, I don't know if they're all in America, probably not, but most of them, as we have doctors. So that's a whole new job, is pornographic model.
Oh my goodness.
And that's it's maybe a goodish job in that you don't have to work 40 hours a week, but I'm guessing you don't make a ton of money. Oh, selling on eBay and Etsy, another crappy half a job. And so people feeling like, the stagnation of working class wages over the past 50, 60 years. All those issues are real, and people are legit, they have a right to be pissed off. And they have a right to be pissed off about anything. I'm not the boss of people's feelings, but to think that Trump will solve any of this stuff.
Yeah. This has been, regardless of Democratic or Republican presidents, this has been a long-term trend. All of these things, these economic impacts, tech, it doesn't matter who's president. The wage stagflation, doesn't matter who's president. These types of things are out of the purview of the president, and they get too much blame and they get too much credit. But the fact is that Trump has no answers.
Yeah, and Trump's also a freaking idiot. What ideas he has are generally bad. Now, it takes us back to Harris Waltz. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you need a genius as president. What I think you need is sane, normal, non-chaotic government. I think tech has, even though tech has been fucking us, I think tech can save us, because tech has saved us in the US. That over the past 50 years, we have dominated the world technologically, and other countries have eaten into that. But if we can maintain technological dominance, we can make a ton of money out of that, and we can grow out of some of our issues. Also, tech makes stuff cheaper and cheaper. Over the past 100 years, the percent of your salary, your income that you had to spend on food, down 75%, clothing down 75%. Eventually, the cost of medicine will get knocked down. The cost of housing will get knocked down because of amazing technology. So if America can keep its shit together,
right,
for long enough, we will get benefits from tech. But to keep its shit together, we need people who aren't freaking idiots, chaotic idiots in government. They don't have to be geniuses. They just have to give a sane government and allow America to do what it's good at doing. Calvin Coolidge, a non-brilliant, but okay, I guess, president, kind of a placeholder. He took over after Harding died, and he said the business of America is business.
Yeah.
So let America freaking do business, but don't put America's worst businessman in charge.
Yeah, 6 bankruptcies and counting. And the idea, also is when you have a president, you want them to put competent people in their jobs. The appropriate
jobs. So competent people run away from Trump. Rex Tillerson. Now, Rex Tillerson was CEO of Exxon.
Right.
I believe if I looked into his background, I'd probably find a lot of stuff that would make me call him evil, because Exxon and the other oil companies, they knew about climate change for decades, and they paid scientists to say oil. Right. But an evil kind of CEO, but competent, knew his shit, knows how to run a company. Tillerson lasts 10 months under Trump, and he quits. And he says Trump is a fucking moron. And so
he hired a chief of staff who was a general who can't stand Trump.
So with Trump, competent people leave,
right,
and psychos stick around. Stephen Miller, his immigration guy, a guy who's been a racist asshole ever since high school. He went to Santa Monica High, and he would throw garbage on the floor in front of the janitor, saying, "Yeah, that's your job to pick it up." His family has been dismayed about him for more than 30 years because he was a dick from word go. People didn't like him. He took it to heart. I can understand that. Not enough people liked me in high school. And you can go either way. You can get angry and hate people, or you can see, well, how can I make myself more likable? I think that's a better way to go.
Right.
The Stephen Miller guy is just trying to get vengeance on the world.
Right. So there are going to be Stephen Millers in the world. So what can we do to keep calm, not react to them, not upset ourselves, because we are going to encounter people like this. It's inevitable. And so we have to have a way of dealing with it that doesn't make us crazy.
Well, I mean, one way is when I'm in traffic. Let's see, I see people who need to be taught a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work because
never has.
I've been in interactions and where I get mad at somebody and we have a back and forth, and either you teach them a lesson and they are like, what? They question their ways. I don't think that ever happens, but maybe, and it's like, well, that's no fun. You took somebody who's an asshole and you made them better. You made them a nicer person. What fun is that? What you want is, well, my writing partner talked about an interaction he had in Manhattan where he was juking in and out with a a-hole taxi driver, and it ended when he juked the guy, and the guy rear-ended somebody, a parked car, and he loved that because it felt like revenge. But
Hmm.
that doesn't make that taxi driver less of an asshole. And it also, it's like those interactions. You never leave one of those feeling good about what happened.
Exactly.
Also, for every a-hole that you're driving next to, there are 15 million other a-holes in just the US out there being a-holes. And
It's
you can't do
inevitable.
anything about them.
Right. So what I do in traffic, and this is just me, this is what the technique I use when say I'm late for an appointment and I'm in bad traffic. Now I used to get very angry and upset about this. It didn't get me to my appointment any sooner. So now I tell myself to get out of the way. I say get out of the way, and I'm not referring to the cars in front of me. I'm referring to my ego. I got to get out of the way and let it just play out the way it's going to play out. I'm going to get there when I get there. I'm not going to, by getting me angry and upset, it only hurts me. It does nothing about the traffic.
Sure. So you're Zen. You practice Zen.
Well,
I have Zen in a bottle. I take for my blood pressure an adrenaline blocker called Toprol,
okay.
and it stops me from getting as worked up. It's like, all right, it's like Ozempic, but for temper. They found out that Ozempic, this diabetes drug, lets people drop weight without, I guess, serious side effects, or at least that they've discovered so far.
All right.
To the point where Oprah had to sell Weight Watchers. Oprah bought Weight Watchers because she believed in the program, because Oprah, if you remember, for 40 years has struggled with her weight.
Up and down, right?
Right. But now she's on Ozempic. She looks great, and she doesn't need to have willpower. And she's like, well, all right, sorry, Weight Watchers, I can't legitimately, A, you seem like a bad business now that we have Ozempic, and B, I can't legitimately support you anymore because I'm cheating with Ozempic. So that's me with Toprol. I could, I don't have to be Zen because I can just take a pill that makes me Zen.
I see. Okay.
It's good also for, I don't like to fly. So like that I'll double up on my dosage before I get on a plane.
Okay. So this is a technique, a tool that Rick uses, and the job of everyone is to find what works for them. And we don't pass judgment on what someone else is doing, because Rick has shared some of his other tools and techniques in the past. And what we do is say, what works for you might not work for me, but if nothing is working, try something. You hear something, try it, see if it works. Who knows? I found what works for me, which is basically deep breathing and calming myself down, because the mind can calm the body and the body can calm the mind. And when I do the deep breathing, I can calm down. But if you find your way to whatever solution, whatever works for you, because don't let anger rule your life. Don't let anxiety and being anxious and agitated be your go-to daily life.
I have another cheat. You can be Zen, or you can undo your pants. I used to, if you're doing your blood pressure, you've got the cuff on.
Yeah.
Like if your pants are a little tight, your blood pressure is going to be a little higher.
Right.
So when I take my blood pressure, I see how low I can get it. And so I undo my pants, I throw my head back, I roll my eyes up into my head, I try to make my breathing shallow, and I see how low I can get the numbers.
That's a great exercise. I used to walk into the doctor's office, they would take my blood pressure and they would say it's elevated. And then they would take it at the end and they would say it's normal. I had white coat syndrome. I would be a nervous wreck going into the doctor's office.
I was in, well, it wasn't surgery, but they were freezing a thing in me with a liquid nitrogen needle.
Right.
And I set off a ton of bells because I'm awake for the procedure. I like being awake. I don't like getting general anesthesia. So can I be awake? They're like, sure. but I can see out of the corner of my eye, I can see the blood pressure monitor. And, it takes your blood pressure every few minutes during the procedure. And I'm seeing like it starts taking my blood pressure. So I want to see how low I can get it. Yeah. And all of a sudden, all these bells are go off, and the nurse runs in and she's going, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I set off all the bells that said I'd stop breathing. I'm like, sorry, I was playing a game with the monitor.
You're amusing yourself, which is another tool and technique.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that when you've got like 6 people working on you.
Yeah. Well, Rick, thank you so much. And I'm going to say goodbye for now, but we'll see you next week.
All right, see you then.
Until then, calm down however you can.
Okay, I'll undo my pants. Bye.
What works for Rick may not work for you, but I know. I was going to tell you kids at home not to try this because Rick is a professional, but I know you will try some of this. So I won't tell you that. But this has been the segment with Rick Rosner, our senior correspondent from LA, and for Calm Down with James Eade. Welcome to Calm Down with James Eade, and this segment is dedicated to calming down the yogic way. And, I can't really say too much about how to do that. So I've got a special guest, Judith Sarah. Would you join me on stage? Thank you. Very good. It's so good to see you.
And, likewise, my friend.
And today we are on the last of the yamas and niyamas. A niyama that I will let you pronounce, but I know as self-study. So what's the right way to refer to that? And then I'll let you take it off.
We normally say it as if there's only one ya on the end. But it's one of my favorite words in Sanskrit, because how many words do you get to end with ya?
That's your ya sound?
Yeah, exactly. There just aren't that many words with ya. But when we say it, it tends to come out as swadhyaya.
Swadhyaya. Okay. Swadhyaya. I got it, I think. Say it 3 times. That's my motto. Okay. So are you prepared to just take it away?
Sure. I can.
I will see you at the end of your presentation.
Yes. And let me catch the time. Okay. I'm good.
All right.
I don't want to run long. So.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir there. All right. Okay. Removing.
Welcome, friends. Hello. This is the last of the yamas and niyamas. I've shared 9 others with you. And swadhyaya, it's worthwhile understanding the word itself, because it oftentimes, when you read various translations of the Yoga Sutras, different commentators it seems like they all got together and agreed upon study of the scriptures as being the sort of the definition of swadhyaya. And my teacher, Swami Kriyananda, and his teacher, my guru, Yogananda, interpreted it a little bit differently, because the word swa, S-W-A, means self. And it comes up a lot in yoga. For example, there is a fire ceremony, a homa, where you are offering ghee into the fire as a symbol of your purified devotion. And you're offering seeds of rice into the fire to represent seeds of karma. And at the end of that, you've also chanted 2 mantras. And at the end, you go, Om Swaha, Om Swaha, Om Swaha. And in that moment, what you're doing is, I offer myself to be purified. And that is, in fact, the result of the practice of swadhyaya. Now, swadhyaya can also be used in sort of a more colloquial way, and that is to say, among my friends, it's not unusual, for people to be saying, "This happened," and it didn't turn out the way I wanted to, but Om Swaha. That is to say, it's God's will, not my will. So that word swa refers to self. And when we're talking about self, we're either talking with a small s about the ego, which is simply the big self, the spirit, soul, Atman in yoga, identified with the body. So ego is not a bad thing. It is simply when the spirit has become identified as the body that we are in, and by extension, identified the material world around us as true, lasting, permanent, and real. And none of that is true. Anyone who, I've probably shared that I'm a science teacher as well as a yoga teacher, and one of my least favorite branch of science ends up being the earth sciences. However, one of the things about the earth sciences is that it forces us, whether you're looking at the heavens and the great distances between material objects in the universe, or whether you're looking at this planet and the long stretches of time, hundreds of thousands, millions of years, the Earth itself being over 4 billion years old. So you're getting into a time period where, you begin to see that change takes place. But for us, we become captivated by the delusion, the illusion that things are permanent, even though we know it's not true. Every baby born goes through certain predictable phases, if they are blessed to be able to do so. And a baby does not need to learn how to walk. It is built into the physiology of a human being that there comes a point at which walking becomes a natural progression. So the practice of swadhyaya is actually a natural progression of the soul as it begins to make headway on its journey, just as a baby moves from an infant to a toddler to a small human being who is walking on 2 feet unsteadily, but nonetheless walking. And you and I can crawl right now, but we choose not to because we can walk. So it is with the practice of swadhyaya, that we can move through the material world and be completely captivated by it. And we can act as if our plans are really within our control. Or we can begin to become a little bit wiser and recognize that over time, my plans almost never come out exactly the way I wanted. And even when I do, I oftentimes don't feel quite as good as I thought I would feel. I'm about ready to start a course in October. It's called A Course in Radiant Health. And we use this pyramid as a model. And at the base of the pyramid are physical exercise and sleep and diet, toxin-free living. The next level up is the level of energy. And so in yoga, pranayama or exercise, things like that. When you come to the next level up, you get to the emotional and mental level. And there you're talking about, feelings and the heart being in balance and things like that. At the very peak of the pyramid is spirit. And, I mention this because of the fact that when we begin this course and we take all the people who are there and we give them a form and ask them to identify what is it at the end of 7 weeks. It's a 7-week course, 4 hours, 4 Saturdays, 7 weeks. At the end of this course, what goal would you like to have achieved or come closer to achieving? And, people write down all kinds of things. And remember, it can be at any level of the pyramid. It could be about losing weight. At the level of mental and emotional well-being, it could be about relieving stress. Let me give you an example about stress. I'm looking at some notes here, and I apologize. So that when people write down their goals, it could be all kinds of things. And there is no right or wrong to these. What is really, it could be a matter of, I want to lose, 15 pounds. Well, 15 pounds in 7 weeks is a lot. And we can certainly point people in the direction, but they have to do the work. But what's even more important is that they are aware of the work they are doing. This requires what in yoga terms is swadhyaya, or a better definition than study of the scriptures is study of the self-study. That's not quite right because of the fact that it is a matter of layering, going down deeper and deeper and deeper. And we begin this by asking them to come up with, what would you like to change? What would you like to see that was different? And so we give them a simple exercise called the 5 whys. And for example, if someone says, I want to relieve stress from my work. Well, why? Because I feel nervous and anxious even when I'm not at work. Why is that a problem? Because I don't really feel present for my family. And why is that a problem? Because my family is the most important thing in my life. And so you can focus at the level of stress, but it really helps to stay focused throughout the day, doing those things that will actually relieve stress. And, I've shared some of these things with you. The pranayama techniques, I guess I haven't really gotten into a lot of that during this course, but the breathing techniques, for example, oftentimes what we recommend for almost every single problem, take an active 5-minute affirmation walk. For example, here's an affirmation. I am calm, I am poised. Simple affirmation. And so that affirmation becomes a running thought through your mind as you take a brisk 5-minute walk. I'm calm, I'm poised. I'm calm, I'm poised. You can begin to line it up with your steps, and it becomes an amazingly powerful tool. Very simple, 5 minutes, walking briskly, that affirmation going through your mind. And what I can attest to from past experience is that it only takes a little bit to start moving us in the direction we want to go. Swadhyaya is simply that ability to stay focused throughout your day on what is permanent and true in your life and be able to let everything else go. Om Swaha, right? My boss is angry at me. Well, I'm going to fix what I can, but Om Swaha. I'm going to take a 5-minute break every hour and a half or every 2 hours. I'm going to go into the bathroom. I'm going to close the toilet stall, sit down in the toilet, and watch my breath for 5 minutes. Close my eyes, watch the breath go in, watch the breath go out, and pause. Do that for 5 minutes every couple of hours, and your stress level is going to go down. So I'm only giving you these as an example because of the fact that the higher expression of Swadhyaya is really around the other yamas and niyamas. For example, the first yama was that of ahimsa, non-harming. Now, harming doesn't always mean, of course, you physically hurt someone. You don't want to do that, of course. But the words that we use, and then, for those of you who know about the 12 steps, we're very much in the region of step, excuse me, of step 10 right now, in which, if you think about it, what step 10 says is continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, properly admitted it. Swadhyaya is the knowledge or the awareness that you've just caused harm. And you are then going to correct it immediately or as soon as you can, if you can. And if you can't, ahimsa then becomes forgiving yourself and moving on. So Swadhyaya is this continuous inward projection, being aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions in relationship to how they relate to others, the world around you, and of course, to yourself. And so in the end, Swadhyaya is about self-awareness, self-study. So I think that is about it for Swadhyaya, and that sort of wraps things up. We actually have one more session in which we'll talk about two other yoga practices. One is called sadhana, and I've mentioned it throughout these classes, and the other is about nishkam karma, but we'll get to that next time. So blessings.
Well, thank you, Edith, there. And when you talk about this this niyama, what popped into my mind was introspection, and this self-study. I say there's no change without change within, and it's inside ourselves where we begin. This is a reminder for me to look inwards for my answers and to root out the things that are false, that I may carry around with me, but they're not true. Yeah.
Well, you just landed. Well, first of all, you carry a level of wisdom based upon a whole lot of things that have happened in your life, and a lot of blessings that have come to you. But what you just stated is quite wise, and wisdom is a universal quality. But to what we say when we say we possess wisdom, wisdom flows through us. And this matter of rooting out false identifications from the heart is central to the practice of Swadhyaya, because what it comes down to is really the false expectation that if I can get things lined up just right, that I will be happy.
Yes.
Or if I can get just enough money, I will be happy.
Drive a better car.
It goes on and on. It's endless. The material world is literally endless.
Yes.
The divine will keep creating stuff, flashy, shiny objects,
right,
to draw our attention away from what is permanent and true. And so Swadhyaya is exactly what you just said, rooting out false attachments or identifications from the heart.
And when you say everyone has wisdom, and I try not to allow that to go to my head and think that I am wise. I think this wisdom has been given to me, and that we all have this innate wisdom, and we aren't taught to tap into it. And this practice, the practice that you walk, the path that you walk, and the teachings that you give us, this is allowing me to tap into that wisdom. It's my highest self. It's not my ego, and I think that is universal. I think we all can do that if only we knew how.
Yeah, it's so true, Jim. And you just used another word, introspection. And introspection it's a good word. To introspect is actually a very positive thing. The one thing I will say about the idea of introspection, even self-study, is that they tend to be a little bit mental. And swadhyaya is not a mental activity
I see what
only.
you're saying. Yes,
No.
very good. Very
Yeah.
good distinction. And the other thing about introspection is that I can go down a path of self-loathing, of criticizing myself.
Oh my goodness.
And so what I have to focus on is on the truth. And many of these self-criticisms are false. And what 12-step programs teach you is that if you're going to list your defects, you list your assets as well. And that's a good practice. But I warn people when I tell them to look inwards and to do introspection is to put the brakes on when they get into self-criticism, and the awareness that you're going down this path of self-criticism. I call it self-loathing, is a rabbit hole that I have fallen into in the past. And now I see the warning signs and can stop before I go.
Yep. It's so true. I'm this matter of self-criticism, self-loathing, it has, of course, another side to it, which is false praise and sort of fluffing yourself up as if you're somehow greater than you are.
Yes.
And so these two things are actually one. They're not different. They appear different.
Right.
One is artificially pulling you down, the other artificially lifting you up, but they're both artificial.
They're both
and
wrong. Yes.
And hanging on to that is actually comes under the practice of aparigraha, non-possessiveness.
Right.
How do we let those go? Those are not ours to
Right.
hold on to.
Right.
Right?
I say, don't let praise go to my head or criticism go to my heart. And it's one of those things that I say to myself almost every day, because, people do praise me and I do get a little pumped up, and people criticize me and I do get a little weighed down. So this constant reminder of not letting praise go to my head or criticism go to my heart keeps me grounded. And it's just another tool that I've been taught.
Well, and what you just described is the practice of swadhyaya, because it is an awareness of what's happening within you, what is true and within you versus that which is not true.
Right.
There's a wonderful yoga practice called neti.
Yes.
Right. Right. And that's really what it takes.
Sorry, I internalized that.
Yeah. Neti. Is this true? Is this true? Is this true? Is this true? It's not this. It's not that.
Right.
And when we eliminate the things that are not permanent, not true, what remains?
Right.
And what remains is not going to be any of the material world.
Yes.
Including the bodies we're in, and therein lies where the spiritual part of yoga really takes place. You can practice yoga in a body. It's great if you have a body to practice yoga in, but in the end, the practice of yoga is to have a practice that is permanent and true, so that when the body is gone, you have acquired something of permanent value. So,
yes. Well, thank you so much. So I am going to say goodbye to our viewers. I'm going to take you off screen, but I will see you soon, I hope.
All right.
All right. Well, I hope you got as much out of that as I did. And that was Eade telling us the last of the 10 yamas and niyamas. I'm looking at my cheat sheet. The self-study of swadhyaya. I can't say it, but don't do what I say. Do what he does. All right. Thank Welcome to the final segment of Calm Down. And I want to introduce to you, my loyal listeners and viewers, Divya Lovewise, that wise yogi. And I would like you, at the end of every show, I'm a little bit agitated and worked up and all that kind of stuff. And I was wondering if there's something that you could do to calm me down. Could you just say goodbye to us in any way that you see fit?
Sure, I would
Oh,
love to.
I will take off and let you do that. Thanks again.
Okay. Well, bring yourself into a comfortable seated position, feeling your feet on the floor and letting your hands rest in your lap. Palms up or palms down is a great way to start bringing yourself back into center and focus with your own divine energy and letting go of anything that might have wanted to stick to us throughout the day that may be energy we don't want to carry throughout the day. So, having this basic position, feeling grounded, even closing your eyes and taking a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And one of the ways we can bring ourselves back to center is observing with our senses what we can feel, the temperature of the air in the room, observing any sounds that you hear. Noticing any smells in the air. And then bring your awareness to your breath. As though you're watching it from the inside out. Watching the inhale wash into the body. And watching the exhale wash out of the body. Just like the waves of the ocean as they wash onto the shore. And if you find your mind still wandering, you can even place one hand on your lower belly and one hand on your heart so that you can feel with your hands this breath washing in and washing out. And with your mind's eye, visualize this inhalation and exhalation as an internal shower, clearing away your energy so that it's refreshed, it's rejuvenated, and it's restored. Releasing your hands into your lap, just give yourself a few seconds of pause in this return to peace, enjoying it. When you are ready, you can open your eyes, wiggling your fingers and your toes, feeling grounded in your body, grounded in the best part of yourself, and you can go out into the world and carry that best part in the forefront of your mind and your heart.